Hi, and welcome back to Mom in Mind. I'm your host, Dr. Kat. On this episode, we are talking about maternal near miss with Tiffany Lowther. Tiffany is a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida and the owner of Lowther Counseling Services. She is certified in EMDR and perinatal mental health and specializes in supporting adults through pregnancy and postpartum mood and anxiety disorders, as well as trauma and PTSD related to pregnancy, birth, and postpartum for both birthing individuals and their often overlooked partners. And she is someone who's personally navigated pregnancy loss, postpartum hemorrhage, postpartum anxiety, and the unique experience of becoming a mother without a mother. And she's going to be talking with us about maternal near miss, the impact on the birthing person and the impact on the partner, and how that type of trauma impacts people like in their future, wanting kids, maybe potentially the marriage, impacts mental health. And maternal near miss is a life-threatening complication during pregnancy, childbirth, or within 42 days of postpartum, where a birthing person almost dies but survives. So this is, obviously a very intense topic. And so for people who have experienced something like this, just gauge for yourself if you are open and ready to listen to this episode. And if not, it will always be here for you when you are ready. But as usual, these types of conversations are so important so that people out there who have been through this know that they're not alone and know that help is available. So let's dive in and talk with Tiffany. Welcome, Tiffany. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Kat. I'm happy to be here today.
Great. I'm happy that you're going to be talking about maternal near miss today. It's something that we should be talking more about. It's something that happens for sure. And with conversations like ours today, it helps keep people informed, but also gives some like real understanding to what it is and what it means. But I would love to start with knowing a little bit about how you got into this specialty and into this part of the specialty.
Yes, I'd love to share a little bit more about my journey. So I've been a licensed mental health counselor for over a decade now. But in 2016, me and my husband wanted to try for having a family. I went through a miscarriage and then also had quite a bit of postpartum trauma and anxiety. And it really just opened my eyes of how much there was a lack of support and how much you should go through grief and anxiety. And that's why I decided to specialize in this area. I see it day in, day out of how much support women and partners need, and decided to work more in that so I could help people since I didn't get the help that I needed at that time.
Gosh, I'm sorry you didn't get that help that you needed. And that's also the story of so many people, unfortunately. But again, with conversations like this and more training happening, hopefully at some point all providers will have training or at least awareness on how to get people to the help that they need.
Yeah, that's definitely the hope. That's especially being here in Orlando, Florida, Central Florida area. We're trying to keep connecting people, providers, like even if they don't know what to do, if they can get connected and have consultation and help women and their families, that's the best thing we can do. So definitely a near dear passion of mine, personally and professionally.
Yeah, and that's what it takes to get this moving forward is people like you who are passionate about it, and especially in areas where I don't know the landscape of resources available in your particular area in Florida, but for places that don't have a lot of resources, this is where the kind of movement, the groundswell starts to happen is getting the information out there.
Yeah, definitely. As much as we can reach out, connect, provide awareness to get that support, that's what we can do. And just
Absolutely.
as you're doing with your great podcast, so just continue to spread the word.
Yeah, and for today, we're going to be talking about maternal near miss, and some people might be hearing about this for the first time. So I'd love to start with a frame of what is maternal near miss.
Yes, yeah. So I'll go over just a brief explanation. So maternal near miss is a life-threatening complication during pregnancy, childbirth, or within 42 days postpartum. So it's where the birthing person almost dies but survives. So this can include hemorrhage, severe hemorrhage, eclampsia, organ failure, sepsis, ICU admission, and emergency hysterectomy. So it's something that has become just near and dear to my heart as I'm seeing it more and more, unfortunately. Also, with being in Florida and just across the United States having more restrictions, we're seeing more things come up. And also, I work with trauma and PTSD with through EMDR. That's what I'm also certified in. So it's something I just see more and more of. So it's a big passion of mine, and I see just women in that survival mode postpartum. So that's just a brief explanation, and unfortunately, we're seeing a bit more of that over the last, let's say, couple years.
You listed a handful of things that could happen, and obviously we can't go through every single possible thing that could happen. But I think people might be a little surprised to hear that it's that 42 days you said postpartum, that it's not something that is always happening at birth or within the first 24 hours. These are some complications that could take place later or start slow and you not notice, or they escalate a little bit later. So that's a long period of time to really have
Oh,
to be aware.
I think a lot of it I see is just trusting your body. If something feels off, if something feels painful, you'll get seen. Don't ignore it. And we see this a lot, unfortunately, with more Black women, with other things of not being believed that they're in pain, that there's things going on. But definitely the one with sepsis, I'm seeing that a little bit more often. If something feels off, and thankfully, the women that I've worked with have gone back to the hospital. They've advocated for themselves, or their partner has, or like something is wrong. Like a lot of things can happen later on. So it's kind of a strange day, like 42 days, but it's good to know the whole postpartum experience, to be mindful of what's going on and to trust your body. If something is off, it likely is. And don't deny it or ignore it. As women, we often do that. We dismiss what we're feeling, or we get
Totally.
dismissed. If something is wrong, there could be.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. We just are trained to minimize or ignore our pain or these signs or gaslight ourselves in a way that we've been trained to do. Oh, it's fine. Or it's because you just had a baby, or it's because you just whatever, and couching these feelings, like physical feelings and emotional feelings, in a way that just prolongs this, I assume, like really prolongs the process and leads to the actual mortality, the actual
Yeah.
loss of life.
And it's really difficult too, of like not wanting to be with your baby because that disrupts your
Right.
breastfeeding, and it makes us feel like we do tend to dismiss. So no, get help, because we don't want it to be a life or death situation,
Right.
and it really could be if there isn't that proper treatment right away.
Oof. So I imagine there's also people who do, like you were alluding to or mentioning before, for people, but especially for maybe women of color that do go to get help and are not believed.
Yeah, it's too common. Even if you look at celebrities like Serena Williams having blood clots, there's
Right.
different celebrities. Doesn't matter how wealthy you are, there is like race does make a difference. So needing to advocate, needing to have that support, and needing to be an ally and believe women when they say something is wrong. So we do see it more Black and Indigenous women, which is 3 times the death rate compared to for maternal morbidity versus white women. So it's something that there is this inherent medical bias of not believing them when they say something is wrong, and advocating that really needs to be changed throughout really every state, all the institutions, of believe them when they say
Yeah,
something is wrong.
right, for sure. Whew. Like we said before, there are so many different ways that this near miss could develop or could happen. But what are some of the impacts that you've seen or that do happen?
Yeah, what I see a lot, just to look at the impact, let's say the emotional impact, there can be a lot of fear, anxiety, a lot of my body's broken, my body
Mm.
betrayed me, my body failed my baby. Is oftentimes if there is, let's say, ICU admission for them, or something happens with the baby or them, there could be separation. Like that attachment disruption can be really hard.
For
So
sure.
feeling like I did something wrong when you did nothing wrong. But that's the belief. So I could see a lot more, let's say, anxiety that looks like postpartum anxiety, but it could really be postpartum trauma and PTSD. So
Hmm.
wanting to be near the baby, protect the baby, don't want anything happen to the baby, because my body and I already failed the baby once, I don't want to do it again. So I see this overprotection that can
Hmm.
happen, and also just hyper vigilant, being very aware of everything. So what I always pick up on is doing the trauma assessment of, is this some trauma here that we need to work on? Is there more anxiety? but we see a little bit of everything. Also, there could be like the avoidance withdrawal, but I don't see that as much in birthing people as I do in the partners, which I could talk a little bit more
Yeah.
about.
But yeah, we can get to that for sure because this is impacting the whole family beyond even the birthing person and the partner. I mean, this is like a often medical emergencies.
Yes, it impacts the whole family. You need all the family care. And also, there's recovery. There's your body's not working quite the same. There could be guilt, shame. And also, let's say if there's emergency hysterectomy, for instance, I no longer have the option to do this again. I no longer have the ability. This is my last time giving birth in this way, and it was not what I wanted. So there could be a lot of just grief, complicated grief that comes through it, of not being, even women who have a great pregnancy and then it changes. I see that of like just the disappointment and the like, I did everything right and then this happened. So there's a lot of grief just to process through that we can see on the after end of it.
Yeah, for sure. It has to be so complex and complicated emotionally. I'm sure sometimes physically too, just with, like you said, the recovery and not trusting their body in the same way, or maybe even stuff being kind of re-traumatized if there are other ways that they hadn't, if they've had other medical stuff in the past or other reasons that they might be triggered to or activated to not trust their body again.
Yeah, and a great point. I
Not,
can't trust myself, my body. It doesn't bring up past trauma that comes up into the present.
wow, it could. And I'm not necessarily saying that all of this, and we're not saying that all of this happens for everybody. These are just
Yeah,
the kind of possible outcomes or ramifications. But there's also this, like, for people who, okay, so we're talking about near miss. So this means that people did not die, but they went through all of this stuff. And even that complexity of being like grateful to have survived, but so distraught or devastated that it happened is a lot to hold. Do you
yeah.
find people struggling with that a lot?
So definitely, I always go with the and both. Of both can be true at the same time. Of it can be very hard. Of like, I am grateful for surviving, and I really am. I hated this experience, or I have that fear that's still rising up. So it's holding both to be true at the same time. It could be very complicated. Same thing. I should be happy. I have this baby. They're okay, but I'm still upset and angry and grieving and pissed off about what happened. Why? But I don't want to be pissed off. I want to be happy. So it's complicated emotions and feelings. And like you said, it doesn't mean that everyone's going to go through this. A lot of women, birthing people go through and say, I survived. They helped me get through this. I could trust my body. My body did the best I could. And that's my hope in therapy, is to help people get to that place of your body did the best it could. And some people can get to that. They may already have really good like strengths or resources, or are able just to process this through it differently. Others are stuck in that complicated place of feeling all of it at the same time, which is very overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a lot. So you had mentioned like ICU admission, like hospital stays, and the kind of separation from baby, separation from partner, or like whoever, and missing out on some of those initial experiences. I think you said that bringing up a lot of grief.
It can, and I see this a lot, even with my own personal experience of I had a hemorrhage postpartum. And even I remember being in the delivery room, having a hemorrhage. And I'm like, to my husband, hold the baby. So even in that moment of, as you're going through your own survival in a sense and hoping everything is going to be okay, of kind of choosing to take the baby. And you want your partner to be with you, but you want them to take care of the baby. And that can be a very confusing place of wanting your partner, but not wanting your baby to be alone. So you almost think like a triangle of where like I'm mad at them for leaving and I'm glad that they're with the baby. And also that like attachment disruption that we saw during COVID
Oh,
of, if any had COVID, was 20, I think 20 days was the rule of separation. So being able, and with that stress, you may not be able to breastfeed or breast pump as much as you had expected. Sometimes that cortisol and that stress will stop it from being as easy, or if at all, if he could do that. So there can be that attachment disruption that needs to be worked on later. But also, yeah, the anger at the partner, like, why weren't you here? But I need you to be there. It's very confusing to be in that position.
Oh, right. That is confusing. Oh, wow. So when you were mentioning the partner as well, there may have been ideas on how like post-birth would look like with your partner too. I don't know. We all imagine this sort of fairy tale, like we're so in love, created this human, and if it's at that like peak experience that you want it to be, this is not it. You're missing out on those first
Definitely not.
moments with your partner too.
Oh, definitely. And that's where there's the separation. I want to be there with them, but a lot of times, even the like where they have the baby is different for the mom's recovering, and it's not together. So you have to go up floor and visit and go down floor. So there could be a lot of grief in that experience. Also for the partners, I see of we call them like the invisible victims of they experience this trauma, if it's like trauma or
Yep.
PTSD, and they're not always checked in on. Sometimes they're like, let's assess the mom, and they're not checking the dad or the partner there, and they can almost feel disconnected from the experience. There might be some attachment destruction for them as well if it wasn't what they had hoped it to be, and also beliefs of I didn't protect them, I'm powerless, helpless. There's a lot of feelings that could come up being in a situation that's medical and then not knowing what to do. What do I do in this moment? A lot of them can be frozen. So I always want to look at what is the partner, how are they doing? What have they experienced? I want them to be able to tell the birth story and work through it because it's
Mhm.
very painful for them as well. I really want the family system to come back together during
Yeah,
that postpartum
I'm
time.
thinking too of there's a couple different examples I'm merging in my head of that like a partner who also was not a partner that I assessed, but based on what the mom was telling me, it's likely that the partner had PTSD as well, but also had to take over care of everything because mom was not able to do stuff. And then there was this like dynamic where mom wanted to be able to do stuff, felt guilty that she couldn't, and sort like in a way not resentful but not quite jealous, but somewhere in that range of partner, because partner got to do and be all of these things with
Yeah.
baby, but then partner was angry that he had to do all of the things and take care of all of the stuff that wasn't how he thought it would go, but also terrified that his wife almost died and was still continually worried about her health and safety. And so both of them were having this just enormous amount of emotions that were felt conflicting, but were just all in the same pool. And the kind of end result was a disconnection between the two of them that went on for a long time. And I can say in some ways still there for many reasons. For one reason is the partner doesn't want to get help for their trauma. So I mean that is just so complex.
Yeah, I appreciate the example. It's just a great point of the complexities to it. Of you're right, if one partner is doing all the things and the other one sounds like envious, I want to do the things and I can't, and just there's so much conflicting emotions that can result, and there can be really reparative. There could be great healing as a result. It really just
Totally.
depends on the relationship and the resources and the willingness to work through it as well. But it's not. I say it can get very complicated as you said. Yes, I
Sure.
love them. I want to protect them, and I'm mad at
Mhm.
them at the same
Yep.
time. But
Yep.
I have to do everything. And then I'm sure for her, thank you for taking care of the baby, but I want to be taking care of the baby and all the
Hmm.
things. So it can
Like,
get
yeah,
very confusing.
it's so tough. And for in this one example, I'm thinking now separating it out, they both of them had trauma, relational trauma triggered from this experience. So it just impacted their connection on so many levels. And yeah, this is a lot to tease out and to figure out like what is what and okay, like how do you hold, like you were saying, both that you can as for the partner could be like worried about mom in this instance and also angry. that they have to be doing all of this stuff.
Yeah. And I like to just, they said it, to tease it out is doing all the ands. It's not that, no buts. I like take the buts away or the shoulds. So I get to all the things at the same time. And also, if you're adding the identity of now we're parents for the first time,
Oh my
and then
gosh.
what examples of parents did you have, and what does it mean to be a mom or a dad? Then you're like bringing that all into the equation. It's
Yeah.
like the loss and gains of that whole journey. There's so
Mm-hmm.
much. So okay, so what does it mean to be a mom or a dad, and or to be married and to be whatever it might be. So just the identity and exploring that with each other. What did we grow up with? How do we
So
identify
hard.
that? What is my old stuff versus my new stuff? So it's definitely, that's why I think like working with certified perinatal providers is, it's so important, like to tease it out with someone who has that background and
No doubt.
expertise.
Because there's so many things we just talked about, and there could be other things, just guilt and worry, and it's a lot. It's a lot.
Especially, I'll say for postpartum for parents, we see 1 in 10 men will develop postpartum mood anxiety disorders, but I do see it a lot higher, the anxiety or the depression with maternal near misses.
Oh
So
yeah.
someone might be like, oh, they're never around, they don't do anything, they're dismissive, they're avoidant. It might be a trauma response or depression they're going through, or they want to take care of everything. They are, because they've had to function in that role to take
Yep.
care of everything for a long time.
Yep.
So men can have intrusive thoughts just as much as women can. They can experience that anxiety
Yep.
and that intrusion. So checking in on both, I just think it's so important to check on the partners. They're
Mm-hmm.
just not seen and taken care of. And if,
Right.
yeah, it makes a huge impact to the family system.
It absolutely does. And sometimes the marriage, I've seen enough examples of not just related to near miss. I mean, we're going to broaden out a little bit, but any kind of perinatal complication, a mental health condition on either side makes marriage harder. Just the marriage in and of itself makes it so much harder. And I think one of many difficult parts is that men typically have been socialized to not to think that getting help is weakness, or that they don't need to, or that they shouldn't, or that they can figure it out themselves. And it just puts them in a position where they're just like having to white knuckle it. And oh my gosh, there's so many in so many sessions with moms where I'm like trying to understand and have compassion for what I'm hearing from the mom about what their how their partner is behaving, and thinking and sometimes saying, I just want your husband, your partner to get into therapy because
Yeah.
they don't have to suffer in this way.
It's so, I would say that's the hardest part of we just got to get them in the door. Like
Yeah.
I'll give you all the people to refer to. It's just getting them in the door. And it's, you're exactly right. That like belief, like I have to be strong. I have to
Mm-hmm.
protect, I have to take care of them. And however, I also see sometimes women, when men do show that vulnerability, do they shut it down? Of like,
Oh,
they start
that's
showing the
true.
feelings and they're like, nope, nope, you're supposed to be the strong one. I feel for men and boys in that way. Yes, we want them to be able to take care of themselves and have a healthier mental health because
Mm-hmm.
they really are the ones who are struggling a lot. However, do we sometimes put them back in that place because we're more comfortable with that?
Oh, for
So
sure.
my hope too is like let them feel and sit in the
Mm-hmm.
discomfort of your partner crying, like instead of shutting it
Yeah.
down. It can be
Right.
very uncomfortable for them. It's a
No
whole
doubt.
adjusting to that.
For sure. And this is, I think we're mostly in some ways talking about the context of this is the first pregnancy. Of course, this can happen at any
Yeah.
pregnancy, but at any, if you're new to navigating all of this, it's that much harder, like navigating marriage and being parents and all that. But there are also other challenges, I should say, when maybe you do have other kids and you've had a near miss, or you're wanting to have other kids, or deciding to not have other kids because of this experience.
I
Ugh.
would definitely see that. See whether there's previous children or whether, and what I could we see too is, let's say they go through this maternal near miss, and then a year, or 2, 3 years later, and one of the partners like, we want to try for another one, and then sometimes they might things have been might have been going well, but the past experience comes up, and there might be avoidance, dismissiveness of I don't want to, or we don't need to, or maybe they work through it. They feel like I survived, my body did what I could, but the partner is still in that trauma response as well. So
Okay.
I see it all throughout, whether it impacts the relationships with the kids or relationships with each other.
Right.
And is that kid, does it remind them of that time? There's a lot of things that can come up if not addressed and worked through. And also saying, hey, I'm really scared of losing you. Or sometimes it's just being honest in that moment and working through the fears as a couple in couples counseling. Is like, what do we decide and how do we help both of you feel safe?
I
There's
think
so
you
much.
I think you just touched on something that's so important, that just being able to say that I'm afraid, I'm worried about losing you, and being real and honest about that is in some ways can be like so relieving and helpful, and like reestablish connection. And oh, you were in there worried about me this whole time? I thought you were just like angry. And it is also hard to do.
But no, great point. Is a lot of times we don't know what the other partner is thinking or feeling. Like even I remember in that moment looking at my husband holding the baby, and I have no idea what's going on in his mind. I don't
Right.
know what's happening. And even just talking to him, like just being so like, this is the only thing I can do, and I want to be there for my partner, but I can't. Just
Mm-hmm.
being frozen in it. We don't know what the other person is experiencing. Sharing and also asking, and just coming from a place of curiosity of what did you experience, like what would help you to feel safe, how can we support each other, and that's like the turning toward each other along the way through that
Yeah.
journey.
And I think that turning towards each other is so important. And maybe one, well, some of the things I've heard as to why people don't do that is because they don't want to worry their partner. I don't want to say that I'm worried about him because I don't want him to feel whatever the constellation of concerns are, or I don't want to tell her that I've been worried this whole time because I don't want to have her start worrying about me. And there can be this other potential, I don't know if it's assumptions about how people will take it, but I think more often than not, it's if people are honest, in a caring, loving way, honest, it opens the door back up for connection.
I agree. I think it's worth like the bravery and the courage of
Mm-hmm.
talking about it and not saying you have to take care of my worry, you're responsible for
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Saying I am an adult, I'm gonna take care of it, I'm gonna figure out what to do or
Mm-hmm.
connect to people, so it's not like I'm burdening you with my worry. This could be
Mm-hmm.
fear. Yeah, I'm worried too, I'm scared, and I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to seek a provider or talk to my OB/GYN. I'm going to talk to the different people in my life and work through it. So I always say we're not burdening. And also with shame, it keeps it silent. So that's like I'm going to keep this silent and
Yeah.
secret. I don't want to burden someone. I don't want to worry them. I always check in with like some shame there. Right? There's some
Yeah,
things that
for
we need
sure.
to work through to talk about. And also they are capable of taking care of themselves. So that, yes, we're a partnership and we need to have resources. It takes a village to take care of a family and our needs. It shouldn't just be the two of us taking care of each other forever. That's
Well,
too much.
throughout our talk so far, you've touched on things that could be supportive if somebody's gone through this, like things that they can do to heal from this. And I do appreciate you bringing that in, because it can be hard to hear all of this. Oh my gosh, all of these things could happen. This sounds so overwhelming. How am I ever going to get better or get out of this? But there are ways.
Oh, there's lots of options. And that's why I always say, like, I'm always, even if someone's not hopeful, I'm hopeful for them because I've
Mm-hmm.
seen, like, in my world, we are wired for healing and
Mm-hmm.
connection and growth. We're wired for it. The body is amazing at,
Mm-hmm.
you get in an accident, your body can heal and recover. There's
Mm-hmm.
things that happen. If my brain's suffering with this, you can heal. So I believe everyone's possible of healing. So
Mm-hmm.
I would first of all, make sure just continue to reach out to people around you, even if it's one or two people, have that support system is
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah.
However, if there's more struggle, I'd say getting with a certified perinatal therapist, like whether it's psychologist, a mental health counselor, social worker, whomever it might be, just have a safe space to talk with someone who can address that. Also, someone who's trauma informed, who has that background. So I use EMDR is a modality I use, and I use it a lot. even if someone comes in, they just found out they're pregnant or they're working on wanting to be, we'll do prep for them like before they go into labor and delivery to create safety. If anything happens during any challenges, we'll work through that postpartum to create safety in the body. So to get connected to a licensed provider is like the number one thing, if possible.
Yeah,
That's
for
something
sure.
I would do.
Yeah, that is super important. Especially because I love that you are providing hope and retaining hope for people who don't quite have it or can't get to it yet. Because it is when you're in it, it feels like it's going to be this way forever. It's really hard to see that you could feel differently about this at some point.
And I think talking to other people, like you're saying, if could I feel different about this? Like Postpartum Support International has amazing free support groups. So talking with other people, there's all different. I think there's maybe over 30 different groups or 20
Yeah.
different groups.
Yeah.
They have a dad chat line,
Mm-hmm.
mom chat line, 24/7. They have free support groups. They have all different resources on there. So just being around other people who are in it with you, I think is
Yeah.
so vital, and that could be empowering. Of, oh, I can get through this. Even couples counseling or doing a couples course or narrative writing, like healing process with that can be really beneficial. So support groups, even as couples counseling, individual therapy, and there's a lot of free resources through Postpartum Support International. So
Mm-hmm.
even if finances are a struggle,
Mm.
if you have access to a smartphone or a computer, then you'll be able to access those groups as well. And that can be a great start.
Yeah, definitely that. The barriers to getting to help can be difficult. And even finding a therapist who specializes can sometimes be hard if you don't know how to search for one or where to look.
On the Postpartum Support International's website, they have a provider search. So that's a great way for not sure where to go. They vet everyone for certified and trained therapists and psychiatrists, nurse practitioners. So that's a good starting point.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other things I always say it's really important to me to hear someone's birth story. I think it's important no matter how the pregnancy and postpartum experience went. I want to know all of it. So when I have
Yeah.
a client comes in, I'm like, tell me your birth story. I want to know the good, the bad, the ugly. I want to know all of it. It's
Mm-hmm.
important, just something we've lost over the just being coming down to like just a couple people in our households is like the telling of our
You're so
stories.
right. Yep.
It's
Yeah.
so important. So I say 10 to 20 times tell your story, and that also helps to get when you get to like, and I'm okay. Even kids love storytelling, right? They
Mm-hmm.
want to know, and thinking about that birth story, eventually your kids will ask you about it. The more practice you get at it, the more you do it with a therapist or friend, family member, the more it becomes more comfortable to you. That's the
Right.
story they're going to want to hear one day, of how
Yeah.
you survived, how you did your
Mhm.
best, all the things that come with it.
That's important too, because after you've gone through something so difficult and so challenging, it is easier to remember all of the hard parts, all of the difficult things, all of the ways in which maybe you were mistreated or not understood or not heard. And sometimes through the storytelling process, or at least telling it and getting a little bit of distance from all of those details, you can start to remember that, oh yeah, there was that one nurse who was like so supportive and got me ice when I asked or made sure I was comfortable, and or other details that fill in other parts of the experience so that it doesn't have to be all the whole thing, all just horrible memories.
Oh no, it's a great point. The more you say it or the more you share it, I love it. Like the nurse that was helpful, or the doctor, the person gave me that smile, the person who
Mm-hmm.
helped me here, seeing like just putting you on my chest and that feeling of
Mm-hmm.
it just keeps highlighting all those beautiful parts.
Yeah.
And the more we work on it, especially just saying whether with a therapist or with a friend, of notice, okay, do I feel I could say my story more like the difficult parts go down and the highlight parts go up. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, let's highlight the good parts of it. Because there are, it's just hard
Yeah.
to see it. It's hard to
Oh yeah,
see it
for
until
sure.
we say it enough times and just keep
Yeah.
connecting to, I got through it. My body did the best it could. I
Mm-hmm.
survived. So there's a lot of healing that can happen just in just telling the story enough times.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful too because that kind of puts things in your control too. It could help you feel like you have more say over what you're living with. Because it's not like you can erase this and just make it pretend like actually it was great when it wasn't. But if it is, it's a part of your story and you're going to be living with it to some extent. Maybe not as intensely as you did when it happened, ideally, not that intensely at all, but that you don't want to have to look back on it every single time and only remember the hardest parts.
Yeah, that's my hope with all clients, with anyone I interact with, even just like personally, professionally, of getting to the place of being able to own it. I don't want to repeat it. However, this is a part of my path. And you can write it down, say it, share it. And if it feels like stuck, if you go back, it feels your body's getting overwhelmed, I can't do it. That's where you probably want to look at working with a professional to help your body feel safer about it, that it's over, it's completed, you're not still in it. So that could be a sign of
Oh,
like how
that's
you might
great.
need a little bit extra support.
That is really useful because I think people don't, it might be hard to know, oh, okay, when do I actually need that help? So you mentioned like feeling stuck.
Yeah, a lot of what I see is if you, let's say you're feeling that fear response or even talking about it, you're so overwhelmed, you're put back into it. You might have flashbacks. Your heart rate's going really fast. Your body might be like almost like you're back in that moment, or you're fearful of going back into that moment, or you maybe dissociate, like you're not really quite there. Those are all really the signs of, okay, let's go with someone who is trauma informed, a
Mm-hmm.
therapist that could work on it. And that's something I see a lot of. Someone might come in and they're activated, they're having flashbacks. We do EMDR together and they're able to tell their story calmly, safely, and in a way of, oh, I have almost like just a relief in their body of
Mm-hmm.
they can exhale for the first time in a really long time
Oh,
because they know it's over
yeah.
versus their body's still in it. It's
Yeah.
still happening.
Yeah, and when you were saying that, there's also this like avoidance feeling, like if it comes up in your mind and you try and just shove it out as soon as possible, or you stop driving by that one doctor's office or that one, you try and avoid going near that hospital because you're actively trying to not think about it. Nobody is like trying to think about it, but if you feel that
Yeah.
strong avoidance, that could be a sign too.
Yeah, great point. The avoidance, if they're intrusive thoughts. Also, I see
Yeah.
this later on if those are trying to have, let's say they want to have kids again, and they are even just that fear of like miscarriage, of like
Mm-hmm.
like where their period comes, that blood, it
Mm-hmm.
triggers them into that
Yeah,
response. So there's a lot of things
definitely.
that can come later if not addressed. It might come up in your body, and then it may be like, okay, like this is a good time. If your body is so fearful and avoidant,
Yeah.
and that's coming up, then
Yep.
it might be a good time to work with someone so you can
Mm.
feel safer. And I'm like, I always say that's my job. It's just to help your body feel safer. And it's just working through that process can make a world of difference for someone in their pregnancy and postpartum journey.
So, what are some of the things you do see after people have gone through the process and have gotten some healing? How do people describe feeling after therapy? Or,
Okay.
yeah.
I see a lot of like my body did the best it could. Of like you said, the and both of
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had never gone through this experience. And like I brought my baby into this world and my body did the best it could. So a lot of it is just like processing and coming to more of an acceptance of
Mm-hmm.
accepting all of it. Also like the hope too is seeing like I'm able to work with my partner. We're able to come work turn toward each other more versus one's doing a lot and the other is not is dismissive or aloof appearing. So I feel a lot of just a reconciliation of working, especially I say after 6 months to a year postpartum. I see a lot more of, oh, okay, like my body's, and you're getting used to your body again in that
Right.
postpartum phase. That's
Right.
also the part of I'm learning to accept my body for where it's at and what it did for me and all the amazing thing it's doing. So there's a whole lot of recovery on the other end, which is beautiful to see. And just the
It
relief in
is.
women's bodies. And I'm like, oh, your body looks so different. Like their
Mm-hmm.
bodies are just calmer.
Like
And
that
it's
tense
so
and,
different
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
just physically, I'm like, your body, it looks different. It's
Mm-hmm.
amazing to see the difference when someone's done the hard work
That's so
and
cool.
where they're at on the other end of it and how they're just thriving in many ways. So that's why I love the job. I
Mm-hmm.
love doing this. to really just be there with them along the journey and to see that, it makes my heart very happy.
For sure. For its beautiful process. So for people who are looking into maybe going through this process again or to want to have another child, what are some things that you suggest for them?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of things to think about. So if I'm talking to anyone who's like on that journey or is wanting to be on the journey of fertility and trying to get pregnant, I would say talk to your OBGYNs. Make sure you're interviewing them, especially in the state of Florida with having more restrictions. And I know that's a big fear for understandable, a realistic fear for many women and partners
Yeah.
of making sure you ask the doctor's offices, hey, what would you do if I was in an emergency situation? If I was going through something, like what have you done? What will you do? You want to make sure that the doctors are advocating for you, that they're not afraid of liability, that they know the laws inside and out. However, that you're in good hands with them.
Right.
So screen your doctors, talk to them, make sure you feel comfortable with them, that they will advocate for your needs and your well-being. And also, I think in those appointments, if possible, to make sure that if your partner is able to come, or a supportive person who's going to be there in the beginning stages, to be there with you.
Yeah.
That's really important. The other side too is pediatrician's office, and that's like postpartum, but later on, like if you're in that third trimester looking into it, also the same thing of, first of all, do the OBs and the pediatricians, will they screen for postpartum and pregnancy mood and anxiety disorders? Are they going to screen and actually refer if you need help? Are they not just going to, I've heard a lot, and I had it with myself. I remember going to the pediatrician's office and they screened me, and I'm like, or no, I had to ask to be screened. I'm like, why aren't you screening me? Like, you should be screening me.
Right.
I'm like, I shouldn't be asking. I hear if they screen you, they don't always refer. So even if you check off a depression scale, do they then have proper referrals to get you connected to care? Or are they like, we don't know what to do, we screened you, but we aren't going to do anything about it? Making sure that they know what they're doing. Like, you can go and interview them and make sure that they are working for you, they're going to advocate for you, they're going to take care of you, and that they also are checking not only your medical well-being, but your mental health on both ends, the pregnancy and postpartum end of it. So that's really important. And it's being able to advocate for yourself is really huge.
Yeah.
And having your partner there, making sure they're like, will you screen my partner? That's, I think, really important, because 1 in 10 of them will develop something. So we want to make sure they're getting screened all along the way as well. And then lastly, if possible, for my second labor and delivery experience, I had a doula, and she was wonderful. And I think that helped me to feel more like I survived because I had someone. So no, financially, that can be a little bit tough, but having a trained professional who will be there with you, they're not a medical expert, but they will advocate for you during the pregnancy, labor and delivery part, and also you can have a postpartum. That could be a very helpful piece. If you can financially afford it, I would say it's a great added value, and made it a world of difference in my own experience the second time around. So I think those 3 things would be really important.
Yeah, those are great points. And to that point, in terms of affordability, there are some of a doula. There are some programs out there that you can look into that provide doulas through like community organizations, that kind of a thing. There's also sometimes doulas who are in training who like need hours and might have reduced fees that can be there as a support. So there are some options there as well.
Yeah, those are great options. And even in this local area, they're like doulas and trainings. I always get excited to see the packages. I'm like, yes, because they're under good people. And that could just be a great resource. Even just postpartum, I say they check in on the mom. So if you need someone to helping hand, check in, or night nurses. There's so many great resources. I know sometimes financially it can be tough. However, if you have HSA or if you have those things, they can work with that sometimes. We want to surround the family with as much support as possible, and also just advocate for what you need. So I hope you'll never need it, but if you do, you want to trust that the provider's got you and they're not going to be reacting in fear. So that's my biggest piece.
Yeah, that's great. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much, Tiffany, for diving into all of these details and the ins and outs and intricacies of maternal near miss. This is a really important conversation, and I hope that people, one, feel heard and seen by what you brought in today, and also know that there's a way to feel better and heal.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a joy to get to talk to you, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Tiffany, for being with us and sharing this information. And if you would like to get connected with Tiffany, you can go to lowthercs.com, or you can find her on Facebook, Tiffany Lowther Counselor, and all those links will be available in the show notes. Please share this episode with anybody who could benefit from hearing this information. We all know that feeling of hearing your experience through somebody else and that sense of relief that you can get from knowing that somebody else out there has a similar experience and knowing that help is available. This type of relief is available to share easily through the podcast platform that you listen to. And while you're there, please leave a review for the podcast so that anyone who needs to find this resource can know what you think, or at least a star rating so that they can know if this is a valuable resource for them as well. Thank you so much for being with us. Until next time.